All right, let's get going, I think. Welcome, everybody. This is Greg Zweber. I have the pleasure of being the CEO of Campfire National Headquarters. Happy that you've all joined. We had almost 80 people register, so I'm betting we'll have more people joining us as we get started here, which is great. Um, this is our second take at reconnecting with staff and alumni and friends of Campfire, whoever that may be around the country. For those of you that maybe didn't join us last month for our Facebook Live, you can go onto our Facebook and see that, right, Aaron or Julia? So you should be able to find that on there if you're interested in seeing that recording from last month. And we just talked about Campfire in general and kind of where we're going and some of the effects and some of the changes that were happening at the time from COVID-19. But today we wanted for you all to have the opportunity to hear from somebody other than me. So we have three very distinguished guests with us. I know we have one already, and I know Nicole is going to be joining us a few minutes late, and hope that Owen's on. But we wanted to, for all of you to hear kind of from their perspective, and then we'll all have time for conversation on kind of the resiliency of Campfire through COVID-19, and what, in one case with Barb Dubovich, who is the CEO at Campfire Alaska, what she has done for that council and for herself and for the staff there and for the kids and participants. And then we'll hear from two different participants. One, recent college grad, right? Julie just graduated, Nicole Pate, who's been involved with Campfire almost her whole entire life. And then we'll also hear from Owen Schmidtzinsky. I hope I got that right, Owen, who is a junior going to be a senior in high school and has been involved with Campfire for several years as well. So if you have things as we're going along here, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll address them either as they come up or in between our guests, or if it's something really urgent, feel free to unmute yourself if you have a pressing question or something that's with any of the three of them say at the particular time. And then again, we'll have plenty of time, I believe, at the end for questions and conversation. So without further ado, Barb, would you please introduce yourself and tell us about yourself, and then kind of go through what COVID-19 has meant for you and the council, and some of the things that you've done to counter it.
Sure, thanks, Greg. Hey, everybody. Greetings from the northernmost campfire point up here in Alaska. I am excited to be with you all today, and it's fun to see your faces. And yeah, we're all in this together. So it's really nice that National has made this connect time for us all. I'm happy to just share a few things, and of course, answer any questions anyone has or provide additional information. We're just one of many of the councils that are trudging through this experience and learning how to adapt and adjust. We happened last night to have our 2019 annual meeting. So we were closing out 2019 with our board, and our board president actually led out talking about resiliency in his remarks. And so I thought that was interesting, just kind of paralleling what we had hoped to share a little bit about with each other today. So just quickly about me, for those that don't know, I've only been with Campfire for 38 short years. So I still have a lot of learning to do, is what I usually say to our staff. Because of those years, I feel like one advantage that I really do have is that I have a 38-year perspective of not only our national organization, but definitely our Alaska Council here. And so I can do some reflections back when things were struggling and we were having hard times, where events happened, like most recently, Alaska had an earthquake. We still count it in months ago, that we were recovering from. And so you kind of draw on those experiences and look ahead. I really do have to say, though, nothing has prepared me or us for the circumstances we've been in these last few months. So I think we kind of all share in that. We're learning as we go along. We're creating the airplane as it's flying, all of those things, right? It's all new for all of us. So a few things quick about our council. we run, we were operating 28 before and after school licensed childcare programs and serving, 1,000 to 1,200 kids a day. And so that came to a real abrupt stop, right? School closed. We weren't able to be there. We weren't sure what was going to happen. The district wasn't sure how long they would be out. They weren't allowing us back into their buildings immediately. Parents were, sent home. We called it hunker down here in Anchorage. So there were some weeks of just a lot of uncertainty and trying to gather clarity. For us, we moved ahead and opened 2 emergency childcare sites that served first responder families. So we were pretty blessed with support from a number of funders who offset those direct costs. So we actually were able to offer that care to families of first responders at no cost. We did intensive research and training and recreating procedures and developed a manual and retrained staff to go in and provide this kind of care under those circumstances. So it was a difficult decision to make in our agency, and it took quite some time to build consensus around whether we felt this was the right move for our organization to be doing under these circumstances. Could we make it safe enough for not only our kids and families, but obviously for our staff as well. So we jumped off that diving board and actually last Friday closed those 2 programs down after 7 weeks of providing full day childcare to those families. And while we continue to go forward knowing that there could be exposure at any time, we are proud to say in that 7-week period of time, we had no known exposure. So staff were able to really manage under those circumstances. It's been a lot of learning. It's a new way of work with our kids. When you talk about the physical distancing, we try to say physical distancing and rebuild social connections with our kids in different ways. So it's a tremendous amount of learning for those of you who haven't had to implement that. Know that we have staff here that can help. We're happy to help in any way, share just some of our learnings. Sorry, my phone's ringing. And, it's a new phone system, so I'm not going to try to monkey with trying to turn it down. So yeah, tremendous amount of learning. And I think the greatest benefit we've been talking about internally from having done that, not only providing the services, right, to those critical families, it's the amount of learning that our staff was able to do. And, through those experiences each day, we gained confidence, we improved, and we're able to bring that learning into our summer planning. And that's probably, I think, has become really obvious in the last several weeks as we start to talk about what we are doing this summer with our youth in Anchorage and in Alaska. We have solid learning on the ground experience. And so that's built our confidence. We're still moving ahead cautiously and carefully for sure. Yeah, so that gives you a little bit to share. We have a school year that ends, usually ends by May 21st. So we're a little early with school out. So some of our decision making about summer had to happen earlier than some of you who have school years who end a little later in terms of deciding on your summer programs. But it was late April, we made the decision to not operate our resident camp this summer. We felt, given the information we had at that time, we would not be able to operate that type of program and deliver it in the way that we would want to. We were also under pressure in that most of our resident camp actually come from out of state. So any of you who want to apply for next year and come join us and be a part of our resident camp experience, go right on our webpage, get your application in now. We also offer a great experience to go out to rural Alaska. I'll talk to you a little bit about that. But we decided we had to make that decision a bit earlier. And in our heads, we all knew that was the right decision to make. It was very clear. We feel very solid. In our hearts, we're all still bleeding a bit. That's really a tough decision, to imagine our kids not getting to experience our resident camp this summer. We are moving ahead with a day camp experience. We use a facility, a university facility, and we'll be using all of the out of doors around that university facility. We won't be using the swimming pool. We've opted out of that. But we'll be doing a day camp at a much reduced capacity than we normally do, less than half of the capacity that we normally do. And monitoring, we have mandates here that have reduced some of the group size, both for our day camp and our licensed childcare program. So we're monitoring all of that, following all of those rules. So for this summer, very quickly, I'll share that we have a day camp program that will operate. Like I said, we'll probably be running, I think it's around 50 kids to 60 initially. We may grow that in July, depending how things are happening, how they're going in our state. We are operating 3 licensed childcare programs in school facilities this summer as well. Again, they're at about 50% capacity from our norm. And our Rural Alaska program, which is kind of least known both here in Anchorage and really, I think, nationally, is where we send staff out into rural Alaska communities, Alaska Native communities across our state. And they bring a day camp type program into that community, and they'll be there from 2 to 3 to 4 weeks at a time. We also do quite a bit of meal delivery, and we do a lot of culture awareness activities. We partner with a number of folks in the communities, and obviously those communities are quote a bit shut down. They're not wanting outside visitors in, and so we have revamped that entire program, and we will actually be hiring individuals in each community to work for us, and we will support them remotely. We will be shipping out all of the food and the meals. We will be shipping out program supplies. We will be doing instruction of how to use those program supplies with kids out in those communities. So really, through some really strong relationships, we've been able to have that program continue on in a different format. We're really excited to see how that works for us given these circumstances this summer. So I'll pause here.
Yeah, Barb, a couple of questions. I have one for you, and then there's one in the chat box too. But how are you keeping in contact with a lot of the kids who would have been involved with you this summer for camp or whatever? And how are you integrating any type of social emotional learning or Thriveology through those communications for the kids?
Yeah, it's tough, right? It's really tough. We have done a lot of reach out. We've tried to increase written and email communication with their families, for one. Secondly, we actually have been, staff have been on the phone calling each individual family that was registered with us this summer to talk with them. We did that as things were in the unknown stage back in April and May. We did phone calling. We were able to keep enough staff on that they were able to reach out and directly talk to families. So that's one. It's very time consuming, but I think from a relationship standpoint, we really recommend it. I mean, you need to be ready to listen and just, be of some comfort as parents maybe share what their circumstances are, but to just be able to be honest and transparent with your families and say, we don't know what we're doing, but we know we want to know what you want us to do so we can try to do that, and just be honest and open. We've also done some story times on Facebook. We've had staff do storytelling and reading of books, and so we send that out to blast so that on Facebook so kids can connect in that way. We had one phenomenal dance party a few weeks ago online where we invited the programs where the kids could see us on site as well as the families that we used to serve, kids getting online, and one of our staff was a great DJ, and we had a lot of fun of just, hey, we're all here, and we did goofy things and waved at each other and giggled together. So we've done that. Let's see. So the other part of that question was social and emotional learning. I think one of the things we learned through doing the emergency care and, beginning to practice this physical distancing in a way. We're just humans, and we tend to, want to physically be in proximity to one another. And so for those kids particularly that are having a tough time, just really learning how to process with them verbally. So we're using a lot of storytelling. We've definitely upped our verbal engagement when we're with the kids. At the programs, we've increased art as just a way of expressing emotion and how you're feeling, and talking about that and sharing. We do more sharing time. We ask kids to talk about what's happening for them at home. What was school like online? What are they worried about? Who are they connected to? It's just really being, I think, more intentional about getting kids to share with you. That I think is really important. We have directed, when a parent contacts us, about their kid wanting to connect with one of the staff, we're able to send those messages. We kind of are the clearinghouse for that, and we send those messages out, and we find ways to either get a note sent or something sent to the individual kids to just let them know they're cared about and Campfire's still here for them. I wouldn't say it's smooth and easy. We actually had to furlough initially over 90 of our employees. That was really, really difficult for the agency to experience that and go through. For now, we've got a good majority of those coming back on and working our summer program, but it's been difficult, as staff have worried about kids and kids have worried about staff through these experiences.
Yeah. Thanks, Barb. A couple of questions from Heather in the chat. So with the day camp experience, are you working in smaller groups within the camp? Or how are you managing social or physical distancing, as you call it, which I like, with the kids?
Yeah. So that's Heather. Hey, Heather. So we've ordered up one porta potty for every group.
Okay.
It's like, okay, didn't think about that, because you want to keep a cohort, right? You want to keep your group together at all times, right? That's the recommended. You keep kids in the same group and not have cross exposure. So one of that is that they use the same restroom. So we've had to do that. Let's see, I believe now we have been allowed to do 1 to 10. I think for most groups we're doing 1 to 8 and following ACA. And so they are being kept together mostly by age, but we're being fairly flexible. If siblings need to be together, it's just an unusual set of circumstances and a different kind of camp. As you know, some families like their siblings to be together, some like them to be separate. So we're just trying to adjust and adapt. We do have a very large soccer field that's used as our base. And so we will be able to spread, we spread out anyway. So we're able to spread out, have separate picnic tables, have separate overhead tents that we're using. So kids will be separated. They'll still be able to see other groups. We still believe we'll be able to do, quote, very large group activities spread far apart, right? So groups don't cross-contaminate, right? And staff can stay with their groupings. But we're making a lot of those adjustments. Parents, will be dropping off and picking up. That's a weird kind of experience. You're not allowing parents into, your program area, right? Unless it's really necessary, which of course we would adapt to. But just really rethinking our way of work and using those communications when you have them to your advantage. So if you're really going to only see that parent in the car that morning, right, to say hello, we're glad your kid's here, you want to make that work, right? You want to have a smile on your face. You want to be able to have that impression. You want to make sure that someone's there in case that parent really says, yeah, he came home yesterday and he was feeling badly about, and I learned this, or now I have this question, or my son says there's kids that are coughing all over everyone. Right? You just have to be ready for those kinds of experiences, to work with them in an awkward scenario where you've got a parent in the car, and you're outside the vehicle having those conversations. It's that be ready for it is a different way of work, and you really want to concentrate on making connections and relationships. particularly if it's a new family you're working with and they don't know the staff.
Thank you, Barbara. I really appreciate that.
Sure.
Good insight there.
I love and appreciate your attitude, Barb. You can kind of tell, I think, what I've learned through this is people have one or two attitudes. It's like, hey, it's here. What are we going to do about it? Or it's, wah, 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 we're going to cry about it and and then you sit and sulk over it and nothing gets done. So I appreciate, it doesn't surprise me at all, your attitude of like, well, here it is and it might be weird, but we're going to get through it. So thanks for doing that, Barb. One other question from Heather was, did you do your meeting virtually on Zoom or did you do it in person? Your board meeting?
We've been doing it by Zoom, which is also a whole nother experience, to try to connect with your board, right? And work through some of these, really difficult topics and making decisions. I'll give you a tip for those of you that are staff and want to support your board. We mailed our board envelopes and told them not to open it till the end of the meeting. And so we had some of our kids make hugs. So it's just a circle with arms and hands on the end. And we wrote, here's a campfire hug for you. And we had them open that at the end of the meeting. And it was so much joy to watch folks through Zoom just take them and go, oh my gosh. And then they were wrapping them around their necks. And like, it was just a really simple thing. But I think if you want to do that for your kids, you want to do that for your families, you want to do that for supporters, funders, volunteers, it's a great idea.
That's great. We've been doing that to some of our seniors. I've been doing senior deliveries each week through Meals That Connect, and we've been able to get some really nice letters of encouragement from our kids out to those seniors. So that's also been a great experience. So thanks for sharing that.
Thanks, Barb. I'm thinking I might move to Owen. We'll probably come back and circle around for some questions for all three of you at the end. But Owen, welcome to the conversation. Would you
afternoon, everybody,
and tell us about the COVID experience for you and how kids are kind of surviving and thriving through it? And
yeah, for sure. So kind of one of my advantages, I guess I'd say, is like being youth and like getting to be able to talk to a lot of like people who are like also going through this in high school. I also am in a campfire group, and I would have worked at a campfire summer camp, so I do know a lot of people like within campfire and like experiencing this. And I think kind of like a general message is we all kind of like want something to still do. So like I really like commend Barbara for that, of like still finding ways to like have summer camp and like still have like experiences for kids and like still be involved. So I know like a lot of us, like our plans are kind of canceled, and like with keeping in mind like social distancing rules, we're just like not going to be able to like be like as close to each other as like we would normally be in summer. I don't know, I feel like in general there's like a lot that's changed, like even like beyond this, like moving forward, I think like next school year will be very different. So I feel like campfire, specifically like councils and stuff, like we'll need to like be there for like campfire kids to kind of be there as support. Like I know specifically with like YAC and our kind of like board, we have kind of like Zoom calls like monthly where we can kind of like catch up and be like, how are you guys doing, like how are you holding up, which I feel like has been like very helpful. And so like just doing like little stuff like that is always good, I guess. I feel like the best way to kind of like support youth in this kind of like just like unexpectancy, I guess, is just like always knowing that you're like always going to be there and like always to provide help. Like Barbara said, like with like the hugs on the board, I think that was super cool to have kind of like a bigger message and like something to like work for and make like other people happy. It's just like stuff like that. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen the videos on like Facebook where you get like, it's like the plastic and you put like your arms through and you can like still hug people without like keeping that like barrier between them. And I like always find those super cute to watch, but just like doing stuff like that. Because I feel like the little things we like can now appreciate in such like a different way than like we would have before. But I don't know, I think definitely with like youth, kind of like a general message is we're not like as much as risk. So I feel like there's just this kind of general like disconnect to where like we like obviously kind of like care of like the general health, but there's like a big part of kind of like I'm only like a teenager once and I just want to like be with my friends. And so I feel like encouraging and kind of like teaching more of like cause and effect and kind of like doing your part to like make sure something like great is going on to like create like greater like health going on. But
Owen, tell everybody where you're from, and then will you share with us something you're doing for self-care, like what you're doing
Yeah,
to
for sure. I'm from Washington State. I'm about an hour south of Seattle. So Seattle was definitely kind of like one of the epicenters. So we've been like moving very closely. Like I think we're moving into kind of like our second phase of like social distancing, but we haven't really come out for like stay at home order yet, which has been very long. But one of the things like I do to kind of like keep sane is I'm still able to like go outside with like our public parks are like still open and stuff. So like one of the things I really like to do is photography. And so specifically with like one of like the kind of like art things I think like this year for like campfire councils is like photography. And so like being able to do that, I definitely find like a lot of like peace and kind of like, I guess like tranquility within that, and like finding stuff like my sparks is things that I enjoy to like be able to go do.
How about how is like being involved with Campfire and having a group or a cohort or whatever? You're part of the Youth Advisory Council. You have some connections with your group. Like what has that meant for you in having that Campfire connection through this?
I absolutely think because campfire I absolutely think is also something you can like take beyond high school. So like even like like after we graduate and stuff. So I feel like also like being in campfire group for like so long, like you build connections with like people in your group. And so like people in my group, I absolutely feel like closer to them. And we have like weekly Zoom calls where we just like catch up and just like talk about like what we want to do in like our campfire group. And like, I don't know, we sometimes like joke about like cookie sales and stuff, but like specifically Yak too. We're all like so close knit, and I feel like there's this just general of where we're all feeling like kind of lonely, and we just want that kind of like peer validation and like being around each other, even if it's just like through a phone on like FaceTime or something.
And you're headed into your senior year, right, Owen?
Yes, I'm going to my senior year, so that's very exciting.
What are your plans to stay connected with Campfire after next year?
I absolutely, I'm gonna like finish up my WoHeLo like this next year, and so I know like a lot of that is kind of like finishing my yeah, thank you. But finishing up my like campfire group and all of us kind of like graduating and like going off to college because we're all planning to go to mostly different places. But I know like personally doing Yak, I definitely know that, like that's something I'm gonna do beyond like high school, and so like that's always gonna be something there. So like putting in effort now is like super easy, like knowing that it's like still gonna be there in like 2 years. But I like with our campfire group, I like absolutely think we're gonna like keep in touch like after this, and I feel like this definitely like brings us all closer to where even in like 2 years when we're like haven't seen each other, it would kind of feel the same as like it does now.
Great, thanks, Owen.
Yeah, for sure.
Julie, is Nicole on with us? Nicole Pate, are you on?
Literally hopping on right now.
Hey, nice timing, Nicole. That was beautiful. That was almost
We
that
timed
was
it.
almost like that was planned. So yeah, Nicole, if you don't mind introducing yourself, tell everybody where you're at, tell us about yourself, and then tell us a little bit about your experience with COVID-19 and how you're persevering through it.
Yeah, so my name is Nicole Pate. I'm originally from Anchorage, Alaska. I grew up in Campfire, Alaska, going to summer camps there, and then worked there as a camp counselor. I've been in Flagstaff, Arizona for 4 years, getting my bachelor's degree. And then when I was in my first semester as a freshman, I joined Yak and just kind of worked my way up, and now I'm the Yak chair, and I'm in my year being on Yak, so that's really awesome. And right now I'm in Gilbert, Arizona. It is very hot here. My Alaskan body is not used to this weather yet. And thank you, Barb, for the applause. And I am going to physical therapy assistant school next May-ish. So I'm just kind of working until then. Yeah, so that's me. And with COVID, it like happened in the middle of like my last semester of college. So that was super sad. And it was really weird. Just kind of like it happened right when spring break started. Like as soon as classes were done, they sent the email that we wouldn't be going back to campus for at least 2 weeks. Obviously that it got extended. And I didn't get the chance to go home for spring break like I had planned, back to Alaska to see my family. So that was kind of an adjustment, not being able to see them, because I haven't seen them since Christmas now, and I've never gone this long without seeing my parents or my brother. And I guess how I've been coping with it is just trying to like stay connected with people, whether that's like Facebook Messenger or FaceTiming friends or just finding like ways to connect with people. That's helped a lot to just know that there's other people that are having a hard time and how we're all kind of getting through it together. So I've definitely been relying on my friends and family and using Skype and FaceTime to stay connected. So.
Nicole, would you tell everybody what YAC is in just a couple minutes about what it is and how it's evolved a little bit?
Yeah, YAC is the Youth Advisory Cabinet, and so that's a group. It started out about like 10 to 12 youth, just to raise youth voice. So we kind of would advise the national board and the national staff on like what we thought they should be doing and how the youth voice could be heard across Campfire. And over the 4 years that I've been on it, we've gotten a lot smaller and we've kind of shifted our focus. And so right now we're kind of revamping, trying to figure out where we're at, what we're doing. So there are 4 of us that are on it, and Julia is our web advisor that we have. And so new goals right to recruit a bunch of people once it slows down and we're able to do that, and then to have a group of people, the youth, plan the youth leadership experience at NLC. We kind of thought that would just be a good skill builder to learn how to plan a conference and to reach out to people and ask for grants and all kinds of things like that. But since all of this stuff has happened, we haven't really been able to move forward with that. So we're kind of in like this in between, as a lot of people are right now, kind of figuring out what the new YAC is going to look like. But so far we have 4 super awesome dedicated members, and I love all of them. So.
Thanks, Nicole. Anybody feel free to put some questions for the group in the chat or unmute yourself. One question I had thought of before some of the recent happenings with George Floyd in Minneapolis a couple days ago was around our continued focus and learning at this point, and then changes that we'll make around diversity, equity, inclusion to make Campfire even more inclusive than we are today. But for any of the 3 of you, how do you think COVID-19 has affected your thoughts on equity when the COVID-19 is, by far more affecting people of color and having issues with access to healthcare and things like that? But any thoughts of COVID-19 and how it's changed your view or maybe heightened your view of the inequities we have in our country and Campfire's role in going forward with, helping that, better that?
No, I can answer a little bit to that. I think especially with social media, like always being such a big aspect of like teens' lives specifically, I noticed like so many more people are like on social media, like active within that. And ever since, like you see so many like stories and like posts specifically about like equity and more like equality. And I feel like a lot of people like want to be able to support like organizations who like support stuff like that. And so specifically just this kind of like movement of like no more toleration for non-equitable things, which I think is like super cool and like gonna change a lot. So
Barbara, Nicole, or anyone actually, if you'd like to chime in on your thoughts on inequities and how that's been heightened by COVID-19.
Yeah, just yesterday I was listening in and participating on one of our local government assembly member meetings, and there was quite a bit of discussion about the homeless and what our community had done for the homeless, and what they're starting now to stop doing because we flattened the curve, right? And so things are improving, and so we don't necessarily need these resources. But the learning, of course, is that when actually you did provide resources for folks, their health improved, physical, mental, health, they saw a great deal of improvement. They saw a lot less of substance abuse. And so wait a minute, what have we learned here? And how can we as a community continue to support that in a way that's healthy for those individuals that have struggled the most? So I was keenly listening to some of that, because a number of the folks that were deemed homeless our United Way and our health services were saying they'd never seen these individuals before, right? So folks that got evicted, folks that were right there on the edge to begin with, all of a sudden found themselves in very strange and unusual circumstances. And so that has definitely grown in our community. And so just that awareness of getting basic needs and structures in place and moving ahead. I wouldn't say we came up with any answers. What I can say that gives me hope is that there's there's significantly more dialogue in our community happening about this than I've ever experienced. And I believe that people have leaned in a little different way of beginning to understand that we really all have to care for one another. And that for me gives me hope, particularly for our kids and our families as they're experiencing the struggles that, you know, we have an opportunity here to really correct and change our past history. And I hope that we can keep these dialogues alive. I really appreciate National's focus on keeping that up on the surface for all of us. So thank you for that.
Just to everybody on here, if anybody has anything to share around, you know, positives that are going to come out of COVID-19, I'll share one and then open it up to the rest of the group. I think for the Campfire Network in particular, and a lot of other nonprofit organizations that are primarily fee-for-service, like most of our Campfire councils are, I think this has opened the eyes to those folks that we have to bring in more of a philanthropic view to our councils for a couple reasons. One, councils have realized now that if you're all fee for service, there's no fee when there's no service, right? So we can't back ourselves into a corner and be too dependent on one funding source, you know, the fee for service. And two, you know, not that I dislike a fee for service model, you know, coming from Big Brothers Big Sisters where there was no fee and the entire service and it was all philanthropic, to the Campfire Network where it's almost the complete opposite. It was eye-opening for me. But I believe, and I'm pushing for this for us at the national office, to be able to find funders that we can pass through dollars to the councils from that philanthropic lens of getting kids involved who can't afford to do it or don't have access to do it, are not, you know, geographically aligned with our councils to do it, whatever that means. We have to be more focused on that. And I think COVID-19 has made me more laser focused on it, the need for that, and what I need to do from the national office aspect to help you councils do that. But I think it's opened the eyes of a lot of councils to one, you can be philanthropic and be Campfire. I think a lot of people thought, well, we're just fee for service, so we don't need to ask people for money. No, it's all right to be fee for service, but we need to beef up that philanthropic aspect of our organization, because we need to make, if we're going to say we're inclusive and all welcoming, we need to give access to those kids who otherwise wouldn't have access to our programs. And a big step towards that is raising philanthropic dollars. So to me, that's one good thing that's going to come out of this for Campfire and for a lot of other nonprofit organizations that are primarily fee for service. So I'll open up to anybody. Go ahead and unmute yourself or share in the chat box or whatever you like if you feel there's some positive that's come out of COVID-19 or will come out of COVID-19.
Erin, I see your question. Do you want to ask it?
I'll wait till, yeah.
This is Ben Matthews at the national office, says here they pronouns. I've read several articles around disability in COVID-19 and how it's really forcing employers in particular to rethink what certain positions require, right? Like a position was written 50 years ago and it's always been assumed that that person has to be in an office at a desk and have XYZ abilities. But because of COVID-19, because no one's in their offices or at their desks or weren't for some time, that there's a reimagining and some new kind of creative thinking and problem solving around what our jobs look like and what the abilities are that people need to do certain jobs. So I'm hoping that it will make folks reevaluate even just like job descriptions or requirements for jobs. Are those things that are actually needed, or are those things that have just historically been there? And can we remove some of those barriers, not just to youth who are trying to get into our programs, but to to adults who are trying to work for us.
There's got to be other positives to come out of this mess, right? I'll say another one I think that's, again, big on for the nonprofit world is I think we're going to become more efficient. And I think a lot of us already have. Finding new ways, creative ways, innovative ways to do things in different ways or from different places. I think that that's going to help us moving forward be more productive and more efficient on the other side of this, if there is another side to it.
Not that it would do anything on the national level, but the people that I grew up going to camp with, we've gotten way more connected since this has all started. Like we get together periodically, but there's a person that started something called Circle Time, and she invited all her family and friends, but over half the people are camp and campfire people. And for like 30 minutes a day, we talk about the kindnesses that were done to us, the kindnesses that we are doing to other people, or just something great that's happened to you recently. And it's kind of been nice, and we found out more about each other, even though we've known each other for 40 years.
Awesome.
So we had our annual audit via internet and electronic this year. And it's actually, what made that possible is our accounting department hires younger individuals that are just coming out of college or university and to work our accounts receivable. And along with those new generational things, we don't necessarily need to have paper in a file. And so they really wanted to keep our child care assistance authorizations scanned in a file on our internet, on our network. So a lot of our documents have changed to electronic. Thank goodness, because not only were we able to help through our customer service with our customers through this pandemic and being isolated away from the office, we had the documentation that we needed in order to help them. And then whenever we had to go through the audit, it was just as simple as uploading it to our auditor's client portal, and they could work through that. Now, I did have to go into the office and spend a little while pulling actual check copies of those kinds of things that they needed. They really wanted to see the physical document, the copy of the check stub and those kinds of things. But it was really just 4 or 5 hours of me pulling the paperwork for them. They had a requirement that the paperwork had to rest for 48 hours before their staff member could look at it. And so they came into the office through a side door and they exited the office through the same side door. So it very limited contact. And actually it went really well. We were able to facilitate that and to facilitate our customers during this time.
Hey all, I'm just going to jump in. That voice you just heard from Carla Oliver is the Alaska Council's Director of Finance, our CFO, and she is winding down after over 30 years of working for our agency. She's opting to retire. We're going to let her do that. But that's just another voice that has a lot of history with the organization. And we're just really, we're very excited for her new adventures as she goes forward, and really, grieving sort of a loss of a long time relationship that we've had with Carla. So Carla, you're getting a little applause there. So just wanted to do one more shout out for you.
Congratulations, Carla. That's awesome. You'll probably go retire for half a year and then want to come back because you'll just miss it so much.
So she had the first ever retirement car parade celebration. So we had that outside. We had staff streaming by in their cars with signs and balloons congratulating her. So, we adapt, right?
I tell my daughter's a senior in high school, so she was supposed to have her graduation last night, and we did the same thing for her birthday. A month or so ago, I had a big car parade, and then she's like, "Well, we're still having a birthday party in like July or August, right?" So she's double dipping. Carla, you got to double dip and have a real party too.
Greg, this is Joanne also from Campfire, Alaska. I would add that a positive to come out of COVID is the positive impacts on our environment. And people are seeing mountains for the first time, or blue sky for the first time, and wildlife is returning to places that it hasn't been in a long time. And people are talking about that, and they're comparing it, and I think people are listening, and I have to hope that it's a reset for us globally, and I think that will have a positive impact on Campfire and our focus on the environment.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for reminding me of that, Joanne. I hope, as beautiful as that's been to see some of those before and after pictures, I really hope we don't have a lot of what I saw after this last weekend, where some of the places that reopened and there was mass people at beaches or whatever, where the littering was disgraceful, and it put us right back into like how quickly we can forget too. So I hope there's more reminders and pictures of the before and after, and that we can learn from that and move forward, Joanne. But thanks for the reminder. There's good things in all evil, right? There's good things to find. Erin, do you want to ask your question of Barb?
Sure. I was going to say too, I think kids are liking having parents around more. My son seems pretty happy. So I was wondering, Carla, Barb, anyone else, I see some faces or names that have been within the organization for a long time or with the journey. So just curious how you have seen Campfire as a whole be resilient, your council, and then how also you try to model that.
Yeah. Well, if you just look at Campfire's history, we've been around for as long as we have because we have adapted to, the social environment, the changes that families and children have gone through. And, it's one of the things I'm most proud of in working for this organization is I think because we take some time to listen and pay attention to the needs of folks that we are working with, we do make adjustments, and whether that's a delivery of a program or how we open doors for folks. And so I think that is part of resilience, is the ability to adapt. I think it's also a mindset. I think it's about looking, change happens, and how do you adapt, and taking a moment to, check yourself and your own values and beliefs around whatever that situation might be. And then, I think many of us in this work are called to serve, right? And so we look for that way of being able to give. And so I see that a lot in our council. I just, whenever there's been a crisis or a situation that our agency's gone through, we generally lean in. It's an instinct for us. I was sharing with staff not too long ago, many years back, we had a school burn down over December break, just a shocking situation, but an elementary school. And within 24 hours, Campfire was working with the school district on how we were going to provide full day childcare when school started up for those kids in an alternate location, while so families could have a place for their kids while the school was being cleaned out and redone. We tend to lean in rather than lean out. From my experience in our council, this situation caused us to, it wasn't that we weren't leaned in, we just didn't know what to do. It took some time, right, to sort what is our right response in a situation where health and safety, right, that's so significant. I found a quote from Charlotte Gulick, on the WoHeLo. She talked about health being the most important factor, because without that, we had nothing else. And, that really, I drew strength from that. It was like, right, it is, we have to first look at our health. We have to be safe. And so just really coming back to our basic values and our beliefs in times like this, I think it really helps us be more resilient, and find those right answers in a very dense, dark forest, right, as you're moving forward. I don't know, maybe that's not, concrete necessary examples, but those are really the ways that I think for many of us, we tapped into, okay, we're going to find that right answer because we're back to our values and we're back to our beliefs. And it's just an approach, I think. It's a mindset.
Thank you. I had a question for Nicole and Owen. I was wondering what you thought that Campfire, could be doing for youth right now that maybe we're not, or other things you're seeing that maybe you thought that everyone here should know.
I don't really know if there is like much to do. I feel like just councils reaching out to the youth however they can, like through parents or whatever, and just letting them know like we're thinking of you, or program staff or the summer counselors, if there are some of them that are still left over that are still within the network right now and haven't been like found another job, just maybe writing a cohesive like email or something to send to all the kids like, hey, hope you're doing well, you're staying safe. I think that could be really helpful, just because like a lot of kids aren't in school anymore, like their summer break has started, and so they're just sitting at home like kind of wondering what they're going to be able to do. And so I feel like maybe a note of like, hey, just thinking about you, or we really miss you, we wish that we were planning summer camp together. That's just my first thought on that.
No, I absolutely, like, going off of Nicole, I definitely agree with that. I know, like, my school personally, like, our school Instagram has been, like, reaching out a lot and been like, hey, we're, like, missing you, and, like, hey, we're thinking about you. And I know, like, that always feels good. And I, like, know a lot of people like that. But, like, reaching out to youth, like, as Nicole said, and just, like, letting them know that we're, like, thinking of them and, like, acknowledging that we know, like, what they're missing, but we're, like, always going to be there.
Heather, I see you asked about year-end awards and how did councils do it. I tell you, I got to be a part of a ceremony on Tuesday night for some folks that were graduating high school, and some their master's degree, and some interns finishing up with the Patuxent Council in DC, and also it included the Georgia Council, the New Jersey Council, there might have been a couple others, but they had all their kids on. We did a Zoom ceremony. It was done very well. And I virtually delivered certificates and a WoHeLo award, and we timed it perfectly where it looked like I was handing it right through the screen. She had it printed and I had it printed, and so I handed it to her and she said, here it is. So it worked pretty well, actually. So I don't know if other councils have done things virtually, but it was a very nice ceremony. The shortest one they've ever done, Rosemary had said, so, but it was done very well, and I was really happy to be a part of it.
Well, that's great. Very cool.
I want to do a quick shout out, and maybe, and not to put you on the spot, Angelica, but maybe ask you a question too. But I noticed Angelica Ramirez is with us. She is with the SD Bechtel Jr. Foundation, who has been a tremendous partner for Campfire for the last 4 years, or maybe a little longer even. Our relationship and partnership is coming to an end with them because they are sunsetting as a foundation. So they're doing something very unique and giving away all their money that they've had, or they've been doing so over the last 3 years progressively. And we've been a very fortunate recipient of that funding. But if you're on there, Angelica, I'm wondering if there's something creative or innovative you've noticed from some of the other youth serving organizations that you work with through COVID-19 that stands out to you.
Hi, everyone. And I just want to say thank you so much for hosting this event. I'm really appreciative in my role here to work really closely with the national office. So it's really just an honor to be here with all of you who are working in the front lines serving the youth. directly making an impact with them one-on-one, knowing for us how important all of this work is. There's a lot of things that come to my mind when I think about how the youth development field as a whole has been adapting to it, and there's definitely still a lot of hurt that folks are feeling, but I think this has allowed organizations to be much more nimble and creative than they have been before, such that, especially for the organizations that we're supporting, including Campfire, I think it's really pushed organizations to rely more on each other instead of to try to like expand the thinking about what does it mean to work collaboratively versus to see one another as competitors, especially as many youth, depending on where you live, probably have overlap in terms of which programs they go to. So leaning on one another and leaning on one another's strengths, especially when there's a lot that is being lost, but I'm seeing a lot of hope in terms of looking at trying to like really look at the strengths that each organization has, both in terms of their staff, but also in the resources that they have available. And also by pushing more of an equity lens in terms of this work as well. That has been really uplifting. And I know for me in terms of my role and a lot of what I see my purpose in being in the foundation, that has been a call for me, a call to action to try to move philanthropy to be more responsive to the equity needs since it's so huge. And our whole purpose is to serve you. So Greg, to your point about revenue models, I would really try to encourage folks to really look into asking, even though I know asking is really hard because we wouldn't exist without you all. So I guess those are just my 2 cents, knowing that we're coming at time.
Yeah, thanks, Angelica. We are coming up to our hour. I think we could stay on longer if the folks want to, but I want to be respectful to those who plan for the hour. Julia or Ben, do you want to give a teaser to the next WoHeLo chat coming up in a month or so?
Sure. I see Julia.
I was like waiting. We're waiting each other out. Go ahead.
So our next WoHeLo chat in June will be specifically focused around diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I'll be talking a little bit about the camper grant, which I have been working on from the national office with 10 of your councils. Some of you I see on this call here. So we'll just be kind of outlining the work that we're doing and then inviting folks to ask us questions and give us suggestions and tell us what's important to them, specifically around DEI work.
Thanks, Ben.
You're looking for that.
Yeah, thanks for joining. And you know, when you get the email or the communication or see it on social media for the next time, share it. Bring some more people. You know, the more the merrier. I'm not sure. Is that one going to be on Zoom, Ben, or are we going to do that Facebook Live?
Facebook Live.
Okay. So look for that information if you haven't gotten it already, and join us on June 24th. Is that right? June 24th?
At 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you all for joining. Be safe, everyone. Keep on keeping on. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg and team.
Good to see y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Barbara
you.
and Nicole.
Greetings from Maine.